Really looking forward to our news review this morning, the front pages of some of the morning newspapers. And I'll tell you why, because I think the Sowetan newspaper has outdone themselves with their front page. You know, when they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, well, these pictures are worth 4,000 words. We'll show you now why. Let's bring into the conversation Sowetan's executive editor, Thabiso Thakadi. Thabiso, morning, and we're just looking at this front page here. It is brilliant. Let me read it as is. Lacked credibility, told falsehoods, lied and lied. Tell us about your front page.
Good morning, Gareth and Tumelo, and thank you for the invite once again. Well, so the front page focus really is the State Capture Commission's report, which is part 2, which was released yesterday. And in particular, really, we're looking at what is the centering by the Commission to a certain extent of individuals, and particularly which include former executives of Transnet, the former minister, and I think to a certain extent included there also is the former President Jacob Zuma. And there are quite many other individuals or people that are mentioned, including companies and the Gupta-linked associates. But this particular story is the one that really looks at who are the people, according to the report, that it has actually put a magnifying glass on in terms of calling them the enablers of state capture at particularly Transnet, which is the focus of this particular part 2 of the report.
Yeah, and we know that, of course, the acting Chief Justice recommending there for prosecutions to follow, and the President promising that he would do so just after receiving the full report, obviously, that final part, the third part expected then. Just also before we move on to other papers, Thabiso, I want to touch on Madlanga grilling, kicking off home stretch. That's the story you can find on page 4. How, in your view, at least according to the Sowetan, did that interview go yesterday?
Well, it's always difficult, I mean, to make a quick kind of judgment of how well one did, particularly in these interviews of a very important position of that of the Chief Justice, because it's actually, he was the first person to be interviewed. But I mean, he touched on a number of quite pressing issues, if you look at the questions that he faced. And I would think that he quite handled them well insofar as his role is concerned. He looked at issues around the criticism of the judiciary. He looked at issues of transformation and issues of gender equity in terms of what is the representation in the benches. And he outlined his own vision about the judicial system and what the kind of things that he wanted to do. So. Yeah. So far, so good. I think we will have to wait and see what the JSC considers to be, you know, the best person for the best for the job in actual fact. Yeah.
Imagine doing your interview that lasts all day and the entire country is watching you. I would never have gotten this job. Sheesh. It would never have happened.
So
it would never have happened. Not at all. Okay, let's move away from the Sowetan, that great front page of the Sowetan quickly. Let's look at the Star newspaper. We all knew it was going to come to this at some point. ANC staff adamant about pay. They're saying, they're talking about the pay issues at the ANC. First they were striking, then they were happy to work through elections without getting paid, and now there's talk, such issues at the ANC. No money. Now we're talking retrenchments, and they're saying, no, retrenchments is a non-starter for us.
Absolutely. So this is one story that has been with us also for a very long time, and it's bound to stay for quite a while in the news cycle. So the ANC staff, obviously, the issue here is the fact that coming out of the National Executive Committee of the ANC meeting at the weekend, the staff had that the party had considered an option of retrenchment or redesign or restructuring. So this seems to be their kind of response to that, rejecting that and saying the focus should really be at trying to get those who have not been paid their salaries, dating as far back as October, to be paid. But I mean, this is really another issue that highlights the, inner party problems, particularly insofar as the finances are concerned, and we've watched it ever since that particular act that regulates political party funding came into effect. So this is quite a story to think of it. And if you think of the ANC being the governing party and having to consider retrenching staff.
Just lastly, before we let you go, then looking at the Witness newspaper, war vets slamming this new charge. Remember, last year actually, when there was that video that circulated of ministers being held hostage. The group is being charged with conspiracy to kidnapping for holding cabinet ministers hostage, and I mean they were of course demanding 4.2 million rand. Thabiso, if you remember, each of these war struggle veterans for just their participation in the struggle and the liberation of this country. What do you make of this new charge? And I'm sure how the war vets are taking it.
Well, this is not surprising at all, Tumelo, because it was clear from the beginning that the state was concerned about the attitude or the kind of the actions of those military veterans, in particular on that particular incident last year when they held the ministers who were meant to actually sit down and negotiate with them regarding their grievances. So the charge is not surprising. The police have looked at their cell phones and actually found that there is evidence that suggests that they had been conspiring prior to the actual hostage taking to actually take the ministers hostage, because they were clearly not happy with the people that were delegated to deal with their issues.
Well, I appreciate you joining us this morning from both Tooms and I. I think if you pick up one paper today, it's got to be that front page of the Sowetan newspaper. It surmises what's happening with state capture so nicely. Yeah. Joining us this morning, the Sowetan's executive editor, Thabiso Thakadi, joining us here on the South African Morning.